so excited to bring up our speaker. Jen, please come up to the stage.
Thanks so much for coming. Brandy, thank you so much for asking me to do this. It comes at a really interesting time in, I think, the world when we're talking about growth. And it comes in a really interesting time for me personally, as well as for Prismagic and where it is. So I have been trying to figure out how to talk about this, because usually I would talk about it in a very linear manner, but that's not really how growth works at all. If you know about fractals, they kind of repeat on themselves. And as I had the opportunity to look back over the last 20-some years, I keep seeing these patterns show up, and me being intertwined with them, and then things I'm attracted to, and then ultimately where we're sitting here today is all kind of an element of that fractal growth. So let's start with the first thing where it all kind of began. There we go. So that's me when I was a little kid. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. I was born to a family where my mom is a Swedish American, my dad is from South America, and actually Virginia was the last state to desegregate, and it was the year that I was born in 1973. So I came from a very, my dad was really conservative, and he was pretty harsh on us, and we were all about education. And when I knew as a young kid that I wanted to be an artist, and when I expressed that to him, it was a resounding no. And so I obeyed, and I kind of went through school and followed the traditional path, made my family happy, and it didn't necessarily make me happy, but I ended up at Virginia Tech, and I got a forestry degree. I loved trees as a kid. I loved nature. And it's kind of ironic that we're sitting in this venue right now surrounded by trees, and that if you got a chance to wander Shiki Dreams, that's also in the trees. So this is kind of like where these themes start showing up. So I went through that, and I found out that I had the ability to kind of grasp knowledge, and ended up going to DU, coming to Colorado in 1995, and got a degree, and ended up becoming a Denver district attorney here in town, back under when Bill Ritter was our DA before he became the governor. During the time that I was a district attorney, I really enjoyed kind of seeing how people were. You had pretty intense situations, and I got to see kind of behind the scenes, because you start out in county court and you're seeing like third-degree assaults and DUIs and things like that. Then I went to juvenile division, and I got to see kids, and then I finally went to district court and ended up seeing murders and really heavy stuff. But I was also watching how these sort of patterns were repeating time and time again. And I was seeing how trauma interplayed with how people behaved. And I saw people self-medicating, and it was a cycle, and it wasn't feeding my soul at all. It was really, really heavy. And I would cry every day before going to work. It was too much for me. Having kind of this artist spirit, it was like an open channel, and I just knew there was nothing I could do to really help these people. It was a system set in place that we couldn't really move the needle on. And so I think that was the biggest time of growth for me, because I had to say no to what I was told, no to my family, and I had to say yes to myself. And this is where things kind of got a little mystical for me. I got this real knowing, and it didn't come in a voice. It came to me as a phrase, and it was specifically this, is you need to become an artist in this lifetime. I had done a lot of work early on with my family. My dad was a philosopher, ex-Jesuit, but he played with all kinds of Eastern religions. He did things called EST back in the day, landmark education. I did that as a kid. I did Jose Silva. We looked at auras and stuff like that. So we kind of had a wild outlook on things, even though it was a really conservative household. And I knew at that time when that knowing came that if I didn't listen to it, it would be something that would haunt me for the rest of my life. And so sitting on that at 28 years old, after 3 years of being a district attorney, I made the leap and I left that whole ideology of kind of being on this road, a linear road going forward. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So I jumped into a startup. So I went from being a district attorney to working with fine house furnishings and basically selling doors. My parents lost their minds. My friends at the DA's office didn't know what to think. And I just kind of started again. And the opportunity to be working with a startup really gave me the insight into understanding that you're figuring it out. We don't know what we're doing, and you're kind of faking it until you make it. And a part of that is serious imposter syndrome and kind of leaning into the discomfort. And so I learned a lot about myself at that time. I learned that I could talk to people about what they envisioned, and I could translate that into design, and I could sell really beautiful things and make beautiful things happen. But that wasn't what I really felt was why I left the DA's office, why I kind of made that big break. And so after a couple of years, I started getting itchy and knowing that that wasn't the right path. And I ended up really making a break and saying, if I'm supposed to be an artist in this lifetime, let's go in. And so I started painting, and I started doing glass mosaics and chalk, and was involved with the Chalk Art Festival, and basically recreated myself again. And I want to say that that is, as I look back, the best time in my life. I kind of stepped into this whole idea of this is who I'm supposed to be. And so things that would have normally held me back, I jumped into and made a lot of friends and started doing all kinds of crazy things. And doing chalk. We did the cow parade, just all kinds of nutty things that really got me understanding what it took to be an artist. It's like, how do you sell yourself? How do you apply to shows? All of that. I was starting from scratch. A law degree doesn't give you a lot of insight into that. So I continued on that path. I spent a couple of years in New York City, fulfilled a childhood dream while I was in there, found out that New York City's not necessarily the greatest place to build community. And it was super hard, but I did learn a lot and came back and took that knowledge and started a little gallery right by City Park called the Art Salon. And in that space, I was able to build community by doing these kind of outrageous events. So one of them was Robot Prom, where we had a whole robot-themed art show. I think that's when Brandy and I were first kind of interacting. She was selling at Fashion Denver some of my robot t-shirts. And we would do themed parties and bring the community together in celebration of art and creativity and fun. And that was a total blast. It was really, really great. This show over here, we did a Madonna show where where the artist did a piece of Madonna art every day of the year. So it was called Muse 365, and it was a total blast. So we were doing just really fun, creative community building things, but it wasn't paying the bills. And I had to get real about that. I had learned my chops as an artist, and so as As unfortunate as it was, and as much as it broke my heart, I had to shift gears again. And ended up joining forces with a couple other people and building this company called Artistry Events and Design. This is another big step because I left the true creative thing and I had somebody else holding the reins as to what we were going to do. So we helped Fortune 500 companies realize parties or events. Like this was Microsoft Bing. They had us do their logo on top of a parking garage in Boulder. It was part of a national campaign where it was basically their version of Google Maps. And this was their golden spike. And so we had to build this logo in 5 hours, and we had to do it before the rain because a plane was coming above us to film it so that they could put it on their global map. I had no idea how to do this, but I said yes to it, and I don't know if it's still online, but it was online at one point. But it was a big step. It was, again, imposter syndrome, all of the same things, learning, and not really feeling like I knew what I was doing. The night circus was the first real step into doing immersive work for us. Along the path of when I was an artist, I would spend a lot of time in my studio, and I would listen to things while I was creating. During that time, I would find that the art would actually soothe my anxiety, and I got really curious about that. So I started doing research, listening to podcasts and that sort of thing while I was in my zone. And what I learned was that whether you're making art or whether you're looking at art, it has the same physiological effect on you. So my studio was always covered completely with art. And I knew that if you wanted to create memories, the more sensory input that you had, the more tightly held that memory would be. So the Night Circus, which was based on a book by Aaron Morgenstern from 2010, I think it was a bestseller, was about a magical circus that would appear at night and disappear at dusk. Fell in love with the visuals of that, and I thought, how can I bring that alive? So I had an opportunity at a design contest to bring it. So this was in Wings Over the Rockies. We erected the tent, we did costumes, we had essential oil scents, we took the themes from the books, put it into the food, and tied it up into a completely immersive experience. We won, and I still get people from back in that day remembering that, which kind of proves the point about if you do all of the layers, it really sticks with you. This was a big one we did for the Underground Music Showcase. Museum of Outdoor Arts was our sponsor, and they wanted to have an interactive entry into the festival. So we built this whole structure which would spritz you and get you cooler. And there were data flashes in there, so it looked like lightning, and there was sound. And so people were walking through it, and they were getting cooled. That was the purpose of it, something dynamic. And again, we were just using the different senses. So we started to have that sensibility, moving towards the immersive things, as well as the stuff we did back at the art salon. At the end of Artistry Events and Design, I started getting that feeling again about, like, is this fulfilling or not? Is this really being the artist that I want to be? And I came to the conclusion it wasn't. I had a lot of designs that we had done that had some heart in it that our clients were like, oh, maybe not, maybe not. And that was really the thing that filled me up. So we rebranded. We rebranded into Prismagic. And we started on the adventure of taking art, immersive art, and bringing it to the public. This was before Meow Wolf was doing their thing in Santa Fe. They were a big inspiration to us. But the sensibility that I had coming out into this immersive work was the same thing I had when I was in my studio by myself, is that what can I do for other people that can serve them? And so I thought, if I can create environments that actually support people's bodies so that they can go within and they can kind of explore themselves, that is something that made sense to me. So we started talking to investors, we started talking to old clients, and in 2019 we created Natura Obscura, which meant hidden nature. And that was a walk through the woods where you met 6 spirits of the forest, and you crossed paths very briefly with a magical Yeti named Shiki. That show saw over 55,000 people in the course of the year. We broke all the records for MOA in 3 months, and it was awesome. It was a really amazing experience for us to take this dream to the public and have it so well received. At the conclusion of Natura, we were looking for our first permanent location, and so we had found it, identified it in Arvada, but the negotiation for that property was taking longer than we thought. So we didn't want to lose all of our followers, so we decided to build a pop-up in our studio over by City Park, and that piece was called Shiki Dreams. So we took our little Yeti, our magical Yeti, from Natura and created a little world around him. We did that, one of my fellow collaborators there, Andon, we did that in 2 months. And we created this beautiful little mystical woods. And we opened about 3 weeks before COVID hit. So it shut us down. And when things opened up again with all of the restrictions, that piece, we could only let like 6 people in. So my business partner and I stood outside for 2 years, talking to people one-on-one to go through giving them the orientation. So Shiki Dreams in that first version and what you're seeing today is a complete labor of love. It came through a very difficult time, but during COVID, what we did see was that people were really responding to the environment that supported them. The music in all of our experiences are set to 432 hertz, which helps the body down-regulate. It's a harmonic of the Schumann resonance. So it's the Schumann resonance, if you don't know, is the heartbeat of the earth. So all of the things that we did, including the essential oil scents, including the black light flashlights to explore, that triggers certain parts of your brain for discovery without tapping into your sympathetic nervous system or keeping you in the parasympathetic so that you're in rest and digest. All of those things we saw people respond to, especially during COVID, and coming back to a little 1,400 square foot experience as many as 9 or 10 times. So we knew that it was something that was an interesting tool for people, and the time where we birthed it was a really interesting time to support it. After that, when the world came open again, we had lost the other piece of property. So we were looking and looking and looking, and we ended up here. This is just a few pictures of Natura. This is the Shiki Dreams experience from our little pop-up. And this is where we are now. So Prismagic, where we are now, is in an interesting stage. We've been open for almost 2 years. Next month will be our anniversary. The Shiki Dreams art experience was actually supposed to be all in this room as well, but last year we got news that the mall is redeveloping, so it sidelines our plans. And so at the conclusion of our lease, we will be having to move. So we decided to pivot, more growth, more change, and I think it took me almost single-handedly for this room 5 weeks to do the painting while I was doing everything else. So needless to say, once we realized this beautiful dream of Prismagic here, we're getting these obstacles coming in and we're pivoting and changing. We had a reorganization, so I'm now also running the business itself besides being the creative. So it's been a really wild, probably 4 years for us in this whole thing. And I am in the stage right now, to be completely honest, is I don't know what's next. I am not doing the things that fill my cup again. I am looking at my new life that I have, new family that I have. And my priorities there are different than they used to be. My priorities of where I am in my life right now are different. And yet I'm sitting here with all of you beautiful people in this space that I've been dreaming about for 20 some years to build. And so I don't know what's next. And I think as Brandy was saying earlier, I'm looking for a pause, a little bit of a pause so I can kind of reconvene with myself. But I do have 2 more years. I know that. And I do have this divine opportunity, and I do have a room full of creatives, and I want to focus on what we have right now. And so I am putting out an invitation to all of you, is to come and co-collaborate with us. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have a program where we offer our stages for free for community builders, for artists. We're trying to create a win-win, and we're trying to create more fun, more creativity, more community building. And you're all invited to help us with that and bring your communities here. We're gonna start doing salons again, like our art salon back when we were by City Park. So in February, we're gonna take a show that I did 17 years ago called the Scorned Lovers Valentine's Day Show, and do that here. That show back in the day, had an 8-foot voodoo doll where you could pin things to it. We had a wheel of misfortune, and we had poetry readings, that sort of thing. So we're gonna just do it bigger and better this time. I'm going to revisit the past there as a way to kind of tiptoe back into joy and bring other people to the party. And then if partnerships or investors show up, then so be it. But I really, really, really can't look that far right now. My bucket's not really that full. But that's okay. That's happened time and time again. So it's just the nature of the fractal, you know? It's, you get small again and you kind of contract again. And then we'll see what happens. So it's a really interesting opportunity today to share all of that with you. And I know a lot of people are going through a lot of growth right now. This world is a strange place. And it is my hope that when we hit times like this, whether it's personally or collectively, is that we take time to kind of regroup and gather and recharge and then see what comes of that. And so I'm just super appreciative of having this and having your attention and welcoming you all here and being able to share this journey. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.